So I saw this video earlier today and I was like, this seems like an interesting video to watch on stream. I'm not sure why it's fully red because I only watched like a little bit of the start, but I guess YouTube's little red bar is not particularly reliable nowadays. So let's grab a look at that, shall we? This is Final Fantasy XIV Isn't the Game You Think It Is by Heccett.
Final Fantasy XIV is not the game you think it is. Maybe you're a well-established player, or a former player, or maybe you've been watching from afar as your favorite content creators slowly migrate.
That's me, your favorite content creator. That's who he's talking about. I just wanted to make that part clear. Glad I explained myself.
Making their way through the emotional minefield that is this game's story.
Hey, why is Rich your favorite content creator, man? What does he have that I don't? God damn it. Fuck you, Rich. I'm joking, I love Rich.
Desperately, yet patiently waiting for them to...
Hair? Really, Fire Deviant? He plays Lala? Hey, wait a minute. I played Lala. That didn't increase the amount of people watching me. I'm not cringe enough? Oh, that's the trick? Okay. Genuine question. One of the things I've noticed with WoW people coming over, a lot of them spend their first few hours reacting to videos on stream. Why is this? Well, that's the Twitch meta, dude. That's the Twitch meta. That's just the way it works.
To realize the same thing as you. Game bad. Omega lol. Well, fellow human, this video is for you.
Wait, game bad? What? What did I miss? I've been pausing too much. Fucking pause in.
Minefield that is this game's story. Desperately, yet patiently waiting for them to realize the same thing as you. Game bad.
Game is not bad. What the fuck do you mean?
Omega lol. Well, fellow human, this video is for you. Or just some of you. Or all of you. No, let's just watch the video. Okay, before we dive in, let me give you a little bit of
this video contains clips from all over the game, so be wary, there might be spoilers.
Context for why I'm making this.
No actual spoil. Okay, never mind. No spoilers.
Video. I absolutely love Final Fantasy XIV.
Okay.
I've played through the entirety of the game as of patch 5.55, and I've completed all of the story content the game has to offer. I can't stress enough just how emotionally invested I am in the story and its characters. But it wasn't always that way. I tried and quit Final Fantasy XIV 2 times over the last 6 years.
Ha! I only did it once. I only tried and quit once. It clicked right on the second time. But I did have the advantage of streaming the whole experience, which does make it much, much better. So there is that.
I tried once during Heavensward, its first expansion, award-winning and included in the free trial, by the way, and then again in Stormblood, just before Shadowbringers launched. Some parts of the game changed, but the reason that I quit was still the same. A Realm Reborn's main f***ing story quests.
Okay, dude, it's not that bad, all right? It's not perfect, it's not amazing, but listen. Okay, listen. Particularly, if you're someone who's coming over from World of Warcraft, all right? Listen, Realm Reborn is like a fucking gourmet meal, okay? If you're coming from World of Warcraft, Realm Reborn is like a fucking 5-star chef serving you with freshly cooked, the best food you've ever had, all right?
Was adequate, albeit a bit slower than I was used to. Some of the boss fights were honestly pretty awesome, but I just couldn't sit through the endless hours of mandatory text dialogue and cutscenes. They would go on and on, regaling me with tales of primals.
You think you had it bad? I have to read them out loud.
And beast tribes. My friends would tell me, bro, you just gotta hold out, bro. It gets good, so good, bro. Please, bro, you gotta pay attention, bro. I'll suck your dude. Stop.
I'm not doing that.
I don't have the patience for that. I love stories in games. I'm a huge Dungeons and Dragons nerd. I'm a proper whore for lore. But in the end, I just couldn't stomach it. Or at least I couldn't. Until I could. I decided to give the game another shot in May of the second Umbral era, COVID 2021. And I told myself that since a bunch of my friends had recently started playing, I would give it another shot, seeing as it was free to play up until level 60.
You guys know why it finally clicked for him? Because he's playing a fucking paladin, that's why!
I mean, what else could I do with all that free time? Go outside? And it was cool, I guess. It was nice to be able to connect with all these friends again, but still, always in the back of my mind, and in the top left of my screen, it whispered, do me.
Hey!
I honestly struggled to do it, and I would spend weeks making no progress while everyone around me soared onwards towards the great beyond, the promised land, Heaven's Ward. But I did not give in. Neck deep in political strife and betrayal did I stride, until before the gates of Ishgard, I came. I had made it, and I was forced to accept an uncomfortable truth. That my friends could be right. And by following the Yellow Box Road, I was growing to love this world, its characters, and its bold storytelling. From there, it wasn't quite smooth sailing, but I at least had come to accept that this game had value beyond the generic staples of...
I'm curious, what the fuck was that subliminal message you just gave me?
Bold storytelling.
I never doubted that you'd come. Insert cyberpunk.
From there, it wasn't quite smooth sailing, but I at least had come to accept that this game had value beyond the generic staples of MMO design that tickled just the right parts of my monkey mind. I was in. But even then, I honestly had no clue as to the ride I had strapped in for. But that's enough of that. Let's get in to the good shit. The ARR smack talk. I mean, I jest.
Okay.
Partially. A Realm Reborn, even for its time, was curious. It was an MMORPG, a game in a genre not typically known for its quality storytelling. But it was also a Final Fantasy game, and anyone who has spent any amount of considerable time playing an entry in the franchise knows that when you boot up, you best hook up that catheter. Look, the games love their cutscenes, and 14 is no different in that regard.
For those of you who don't know what a catheter is, it's a little piece of rubber medical tube that you jam up your urethra so that you don't have to get out of your chair to piss. I just wanted to make sure that you guys got that piece of information just in case somebody didn't know what a catheter is.
That's a hard sell for some people, especially veteran MMO gamers who aren't exactly known for their, let's call it, patience. The presentation holds up pretty well for a game that's almost a decade old, but the narrative and script often feel more 1613 than 2013. The dialogue frequently reads like a Shakespearean tragedy.
Not really, it's just a Riange. Come on, dude, what the fuck?
Is bloated by an absolutely absurd amount of self-fillating lore dumps that would make even George R.R. Martin blush. It's fucking rad, but it's not well adjusted to a Tolkien era audience that probably left 59 seconds into this video because I didn't look like this. Or this.
See, this is the problem with TikTok, is it does generate these types of people that do not have the patience to sit through, longer forms of content. That's this. Like, no, their attention span is like dwindling. It's constantly dwindling. What was that Asmongold said in one of his streams? That like he had to do something outlandish every 7 seconds in order to like retain his audience. See, this is why I'm not successful. I don't do some randomly outlandish shit every 7 seconds to retain audience, because that's the average attention span of people. Fucking 7 seconds. And it's getting lower and lower as, people exploit themselves in different ways. It's so ridiculous.
Too literary for most people. And sometimes I caught myself wondering how much my time was being valued. Okay. Before you press enter on that white-hot parasocial-infused comment down below, remember that you are definitely not in a cult, and I promise this is going somewhere. I really do love this game, like, a lot. And having played through the entire story as it currently exists, I recognize in retrospect how important all of that stuff was. Truthfully, I am so grateful for the attention to detail in A Realm Reborn's writing, because it provides a rock-solid foundation upon which the more emotionally driven tales can be told. But that doesn't mean it's a good introduction to the game. In fact, I'd go so far as to say it's a poor representation of the game as a whole. Just to clarify, not bad. Just not a good representation of the...
I love the effort that he's making. I'm pretty sure that, listen, dude, people who are going to dislike your video already did it, right? Yep, there it is, 80 dislikes. Yep.
larger game. Story aside, the gameplay in Final Fantasy XIV is slower than what most people have come to associate with the modern MMO. While the majority of other games in the genre
I have no idea what he's talking about. Like, if you were to say the gameplay of Realm Reborn, then I'd be like, yeah. But once you get up to like Stormblood, I think most classes start popping off with their OGCDs and shit.
Genre have taken it upon themselves to compete over who can fuck up my wrists the fastest. 14 has, for the most part, maintained its more methodical approach to combat. As you level, you get more skills to add to your rotation, and depending on what job or class you're playing, you might rack up a good number of them that can be used outside of the typical 2.5 second global cooldown window. But getting there takes a lot of time in which most people will have made up their minds about how engaging they feel the game is mechanically.
Because they're fucking TikTokers and have the attention span of a fucking little tiny walrus.
At least. I played a black mage during my time in ARR, and I hated it. If I wanted to cast the same two spells...
Of course you hated it. It was a black mage. What did you expect? Black mage sucks, dude. If you want to play a mage, you should have played the best one, which is the red mage. Of course. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that, dude. Come on, dude. I mean, what do you expect?
Over and over again, giving me more than enough time to contemplate the poor life choices that led me to that point, I'd play something else. Like New World. But as soon as I switched to red mage, which essentially allows me to instantly throw out a spell...
What did I say? Red mage, best mage, baby! Woo!
between each hardcast, I was thriving.
Exactly,
it's not that
dude.
Black mage is bad, and you.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Black mage is bad. Black mage is bad. All right, get good, black mages. Be better.
Should feel bad for liking it. The job is actually so highly regarded within the community that pretty much...
Yeah, they're huffing on copium, dude. Everybody knows red mage is the best.
Anyone who even claims to play it is appointed the formal title of Giga Chad. But even then, most people will agree that it's just not a good representation of the game's combat up until level 50.
Of course it isn't.
I'm
joking, by the way. Some people will see this and be like, all of a sudden, oh, I can't believe streamer didn't like black mage. Dude, I don't give a fuck what you play. Enjoy what you want. I'm joking. I just like red mage more.
Are some other issues with the onboarding process. like the web services being an absolute nightmare to navigate, and the UI being a bit intimidating.
Interestingly enough, you guys want to know something really funny about the Mog Station that I discovered recently, even though I should have known before because people had told me that it worked like this, is the fact that I've always wanted to be able to pay my sub with PayPal because I have PayPal balance from like YouTube and shit. And it's like, I couldn't. You can't just like go to the thing and give yourself a sub option to pay through PayPal. But you can buy Krista with PayPal, and then you can use Krista to pay for your sub. And I was like, why can't I just pay my sub with PayPal? What's the difference? No, you can't do that. You can't pay your sub with PayPal. But you can buy Krista with PayPal on the same website. You can buy Krista with PayPal, and then you can use that Krista to buy game time. It's weird as fuck. Don't ask me why. There's no PayPal in yours. Yeah, dude. The hardest content is to buy the game. Yeah, exactly. Buying Final Fantasy XIV, fucking the Ultimate Edition.
First, but I don't really want to talk about those things because they're boring. So,
do you not like the UI?
Intimidating at first. There are some other issues with the onboarding process, like the web services being an absolute nightmare to navigate, and the UI being a bit intimidating at first. But I don't really want to talk about those things because they're boring. So
it's interesting. I didn't find the UI intimidating because the UI with controller is actually much more player friendly than the fucking 5 buttons on the bottom of the screen. Like the controller UI is actually much more player friendly. So I never thought that the UI was like, oh my God, I don't understand what the fuck's going on. It's a little bit overwhelming when you're customizing it the first time, but I feel like with the controller, things are easier.
If you've made it this far, thank you very, very much for bearing with me, especially those of you who, like myself, are massive fans of the game. Not a cult. We've arrived at the part of the video where I try to actually sell this experience, in spite of all those things I've just said. And some things I still have to say. Sorry. Final Fantasy XIV isn't the game you think it is.
It definitely
If you stopped playing in ARR for the same reasons that I did, or are putting off trying it entirely by similar complaints that you've heard,
say it.
I understand. It is perfectly reasonable to decide that this experience is insurmountable to you. You shouldn't feel like you need to invest upwards of 50 hours just to get to the good stuff, even if it's free. Even if the community screams that it gets better and that you won't regret it. That's not enough of an incentive for some people. They need to feel that themselves. However, if it is, you will be graced with one of the most ambitious, epic, and emotionally rich stories that the entirety of gaming has to offer. It has immense scope, weight, and consequences, leaving your heartstrings twisted and disfigured beyond recognition. You see, Final Fantasy isn't one of those games in the genre that you slowly learn to hate more and more because it hurts for you to continue to play it.
Here it comes.
Broken promises.
It's one of those games that you learn to love because of how much it continues to hurt your feelings while you play.
Dude, this game knows how to make me fucking cry. I've cried like 5 times.
There's friendship, sound family, love, loss.
Pyromancer better get like a fucking... like one of those, what do you call it? An IV of water, just so that he doesn't get dehydrated, okay? Because during Fieldsbringer, he's going to get fucking dehydrated.
Guilt, sacrifice, and most importantly, despite all of that, hope. It is one of the grandest adventures that I have ever experienced, and it just keeps getting better. I am legitimately...
Okay, that was a cheap shot. That right there was a fucking cheap shot, okay? I just want to throw that out there. That was a fucking cheap shot.
He's so damn excited to see how the current story, almost a decade in the making, comes to a close. However, if you're anything like me and you struggled to sit through ARR, you really don't have a good sense of any of that. So what changed? Well, for one, the lead writers. What we get at the beginning is a well-written, albeit off-pace tale of political intrigue and subterfuge. There's a lot to praise in the early content, don't get me wrong, but the incredible character moments and plot twists at times feel drowned out by the 15-minute monologues and info dumps. It's meticulously written to a fault. Maybe it's because of the disaster that was the original game, but there are moments that scream of a desperation for validation.
Things are different now, we promise. We're a real fantasy game. Please, come back!
It takes a bit of time to hit its stride. Again, 10-year-old game struggling under the weight of its initial failures. But holy hell, does it have momentum once it does.
Oh yeah.
As the game reaches maturity in its later installments, the story moves away from its bookish roots and flourishes into something much more cinematic, an approach that we've become accustomed to in modern gaming. On top of that, it doubles down on the much more accessible approach of telling the majority of the story through the experience of its characters, instead of forcing you to sit through hours of exposition. A Realm Reborn has a bad habit of telling you why something is important, while expansions like Shadowbringers show you why it's important to the people you've come to care about. It's a completely different experience. I care a lot more about what happened to my second husbando 3 years ago, and how that changed him as a person, than I care about what happened during a war that I wasn't a part of. And I care more about how a lost civilization directly affects a dear friend than how said civilization affected current technology. Those things that I care less about are still super important. I just don't need the game spending a disproportionate amount of time on them. I was so fucking happy to see this change in direction, and I felt it. It was tangible. I am here to tell you, as a former skeptic, that despite all of the legitimate criticisms someone might have of the game, especially regarding ARR, the payoff is...
You know, I never thought about it like that. How the reason a lot of the stuff works better is because you experience it and you see how it affects those around you than necessarily how it affects everybody else as a whole. The way that every story beat basically kind of affects someone that is close to you when you start getting to Heavensward, and how that is much more impactful than, you know, something that's like, oh my God. And when the seventh Umbral era, whatever, fucking Bahamut came out of the moon and fucking blew up the world. Like, how many millions of Eorzeans died that day? I was like, yeah, I don't give a fuck about those. But like a certain person that died during Heavensward, I would murder everyone and their fucking mothers to avenge him. It is what it is. Interesting.
Immense. I am so grateful for my friends who encouraged me to stick with it. What you get is a game that is made with love by developers who are also fans and active players of the game. You get an absolute ton of content, both old and new, that
content
stays impressively relevant and doesn't exist purely as a series of hurdles you need to overcome just to get to the part of the game that everyone's actually playing. That's really unusual for the genre, and it was such a refreshing change of pace. The casual and collector content is vast and varied. There's theme park rides, jumping puzzles, card games, mini games, treasure hunting. The list is so damn long, dude. And did I mention deeply customizable housing? Yeah, it has that too. On the other end of the spectrum, the super hardcore content is also incredibly well designed and compelling. Estimates claim that less than 4% of characters across all regions of Final Fantasy XIV have cleared the hardest content that the latest expansion has to offer. the Epic of Alexander Ultimate. It might be incredibly tough content, but talk to anybody who's cleared it and they'll tell you that it's fair. There's just so much on offer in this game that it's almost overwhelming. So, my advice for people engaging or re-engaging with 14 is this. It's actually not to rush through the first part of the game just
it's almost like I made a video just talking about this.
I know that some of the things that I've said in this video might suggest that I think that's a good idea. Unless you're just completely uninterested in stories in general, then don't. I think you should take your time. Unlike most other modern MMOs, this is not a race to the finish line. A huge part of FF14's value, at least for somebody like me, is actually in the journey. And that's not a cop-out.
Yep.
There's plenty to do when you get to that level cap. All of those things I've been complaining about are free. So what's the rush? ARR might be a bit of a slog, yes. But you also get a decent taste of what's to come in Heavensward, which is also included in the trial. Try out different jobs to see what pace of combat best suits you, because it varies a lot between them. Read the story, but
how many
go in
jobs
with
is
the
this
right
dude level? Did you guys
expectations.
see that?
Go in with the knowledge that A Realm Reborn lays a solid foundation of lore that the story builds upon, but it's not an accurate representation of the story as a whole. Not even close. A Realm Reborn is, in a lot of ways, a story about a place, while the following expansions are a lot more about its people. When fans of the game take to their socials to rant, rave, and defend the story of 14, they aren't talking about ARR. They are talking about something much grander in scale that not only builds over the course of the expansions, but also dramatically improves in its delivery over time. 14 is a game that has learned so much and is infinitely better for it. It's a damn shame that you don't get a good sense of that from the get-go, but maybe that will change. Final Fantasy XIV is not what you think it is. It is not the perfect game created by perfect developers like some people would have you believe, but it's also not the fundamentally flawed games that others would have you believe either.
Quinn, really?
Regardless of which side you find yourself leaning more towards,
what was
I can tell so not the fundamentally
what was the reply from
flawed
Asmongold?
games that others would have you believe either.
I hate that fucking game.
Regardless of which side you find yourself leaning more towards, I can tell you one thing absolutely.
Where were the heels?
Final Fantasy XIV is not A Realm Reborn. Not anymore.
Thank fuck. It was not
Okay,
that bad.
that's the video, I guess. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate both your time and your attention. If you liked the video, please hit that like button because this is a new style of content for me. So it really lets me know that this is the kind of thing that you would like to see in the future.
Guys, make sure to
on the
go
flip side, if you didn't like
and
it,
hit like button
please
on
tell
this
me
video.
why. The feedback is really important moving forward, so it's cool. If you decide you would like to see
Wait, this guy looks like my bald brother? The fuck? The fuck is that supposed to mean?
more from me, then you can maybe hit that subscribe button so you know when my future videos go live. Maybe even that notification bell too to know more immediately. Otherwise, you can find me live on Twitch at twitch.tv/Heccett. We're pretty chill.
Oh, it's supposed to be pronounced Heccett? I was wondering how you're supposed to pronounce that, if it was Heccett or Exit or Heccett.
But
Heccett is not
that's
what I
it
would
from
expect.
me. Take care of yourself. See ya.
That was pretty good. That was actually pretty good. Heccett has made a nice video here, and I'm glad that he's enjoying Final Fantasy XIV. Endwalker's just around the corner. Guys, Endwalker is literally next week. Like literally next week. Dude. What do you mean 2 weeks, dude? It's next week. It's next Friday. Literally next week. Early access is Friday. Early access is Friday, baby.